One of the techniques we have at our disposal when working with JavaScript is the ability to quickly and relatively easily compose new objects from other objects. So in this video, we're going to learn about object.assign, and we're going to see how to use the spread operator to simplify that code even more. Let's get started with that right now. We start with just an object I created here on the fly. It's just meant to give the functionality of what a person is supposed to do. So in this case, a person, we describe a person by saying, well, a person can greet and a person can eat. And obviously there's a lot more that we could include in here. So we're simply creating some ES6 or ES 2015 method using that syntax. To review, a method is nothing but a function that's scoped inside of an object. Here we're using template literals, also part of ES 2015 or ES6, where we can combine literal words with $brace, and whatever's in the $brace is treated as JavaScript code or is evaluated as JavaScript code. So nothing much happening here, essentially just a simple object with two methods. If we were to run this method at this time, it would work, but wouldn't really be that helpful. It just says, hi, my name is undefined. The reason why it's saying undefined, well, before we answer that, let's take out this keyword this and run it again. So I took out the keyword this, and if we hit run now, we actually get an error, a reference error that says name is not defined. Makes sense, because JavaScript came in here and looked for a variable name, and there is no variable name to be found anywhere. Therefore, name is not defined. Let's undo that with Command Z to say this.name. So what's the difference here? Why does it say, we don't get an error at least. It says my name is undefined, but that's not an error. Undefined is just one of our primitive JavaScript data types, meaning that this thing has an absence of a value. So what exactly is this? Well, we can answer that by saying console.log this. So when we invoke person.greet, let's take a look at what that is. And this, when we run person.greet, this looks like this exact object, which kind of sort of... So we see that this is a reference to whatever invoked the greet method. That's all this is. Now, there's a lot more that can be said about the this keyword, but not really the purpose of this video. So for this case, I just want you to realize that saying this.name, when we invoke person.greet, it will look inside of person for the name value, and it's not there, but that's okay, because if it's an object and the property doesn't exist, it just says, hey, I looked for this thing and it doesn't have a value, it's undefined. No problem though, no reference error in that case. Now, that's perfectly fine, because we don't really want, if this is a generic sort of person object that just describes the functionality of a person or the methods of a person, we don't need this to have an individual name. Just to demo, we can go ahead and make one up really quickly. We'll just say Mark. Okay, and now when I run this, it says, hi, my name is Mark. That's not really what we're going for. What we want to do is keep all of that functionality of what a person is and being able to essentially merge that functionality into any other object that we want. So we can create, for example, an individual, me, and we can give that individual a name. And we can go ahead and do the fave food. Okay, so in this case, we now have me. Let's go ahead and just try to, say me.greet. What's going to happen in this case? When I hit run, we're going to get an error, a type error, where me.greet is not a function. See, we have these parentheses here. So we're telling JavaScript, hey, inside of me, you should have access to something called greet, and we're expecting that thing to be a function. Well, in fact, me.greet is most definitely not a function. It's undefined. The replit doesn't explicitly say undefined all the time, but it's undefined. Okay, so how can we have access to the greet method? Because if me is supposed to behave like a person, how can we compose the behavior of a person with me? Well, one way we could do that is to use object.assign. I should say that this is a static method that is directly invoked on the object prototype. If you don't really know what that means, that's okay. Just wanted to let you know that this is, in fact, assign is a static method on the object prototype. What that really means is a subject for maybe another video. Okay, so I can say, okay, I want to assign, okay, so I have this object, and all I need to do here is say person. And now when I run this, hey, it looks like greet is, in fact, a function, and if I invoke that by throwing the parentheses on it, it works. All we need to know is that person is the second argument, and everything from the second argument will be assigned to this first argument here, this object. So the result, in fact, if we just take a look at me, the result is what we want. We have taken the functionality of a person and we have composed that into an individual person. This is a lot of typing here, object.assign. This is a way to write this so it's much more readable. Let's take out object.assign and let's just go back to where we started, right? So now we're just back to the basic object that does not have any of that person functionality. All we need to do is throw 3 dots in front of the variable person, and it works the same way. This is known as the spread operator. So the spread operator, as the name implies, spreads out all of the keys inside of an object, and then we're wrapping all of that into another object, and we're combining that with the other properties here. So this is essentially a shortcut for object.assign. Again, the spread operator spread out all of the stuff that's in this object, whether there's 2 things or 100 things, doesn't matter. And then from there, we can add in or mix in the additional properties that we need, and we have a whole new object that has all of the functionality that we need. And this is actually a very nice way, separate topic, but this is sort of a nice way to avoid mutations also. For example, I'll show that before we wrap up. What if I added a new I said me.eat, and I wanted to create some new functionality. And in this case, I mean, just to have something, I'll just say, you know, I like cupcakes, whatever, okay? So we'll do it like that. So if I say, we'll go ahead and invoke me.eat now. So I'm taking me, I'm adding eat, and so I'm changing the behavior of eat. Let's run this twice. Let's log the value of me.eat up here before we make this change. So the first time it says I like to eat pizza because it's using the eat that came from person. Then we said, you know what, I want me to just say I like cupcakes for whatever reason. So the second time we ran it, it did that. But let's take a look at the original person.eat. And if we run that, it still says I like to eat undefined. So you can see that we avoided mutations. We did not in any way, shape, or form mutate or change the original intended functionality. Instead, we mixed it in or composed it into a new object. And then we had the option of changing the individual behavior without changing the original intended behavior. Avoiding mutations, spread operator, which is a shorthand for object.assign when used in this context. And that's it, composing objects.